So in this video, I want to talk about the reign of the 7 Spellblades. Now, this is a series with 12 volumes currently. The last volume apparently came out July of 2023, and there doesn't seem to be anything else since then. And there is a side volume that came out in March of 2023. So there's 12 volumes with an extra side volume. And this is a series that I actually really was interested in when it first aired, because everyone was like, oh, it's Harry Potter with an anime spin to it. I would say it's a bit of DanMachi in Harry Potter, and the reason being is I'll get into. But when I see the comparison to Harry Potter and this series, I can definitely see the comparisons, but I would say that this has a bit more of an in-depth dungeon system compared to Harry Potter. Like, Harry Potter has some interesting mysteriousness in it, at least from the first couple of movies for me. But then it just feels like the majesty and the mysteriousness with Harry Potter kind of disappears as the story goes on. And I don't know if that's just because the movies just did a terrible job, because again, I haven't read the I was going to say light novels, but they're not light novels, the volumes for Harry Potter. Which is why I compare it to also DanMachi, because DanMachi has like a deep dungeon system and has its like own ecosystem. This has its own ecosystem in the dungeon for the school, so that's why I kind of compare it to Harry Potter and DanMachi. I love this series from the basic premise of what it tries to offer, but I absolutely hate how it executed it, because honestly this needed to be 2 cores. And the reason being is straightforward. The start of the story, it builds it off with. It gets you into the castle, it gets you established with some of the characters. You might like some of the characters, you might not like some of the characters. It's clear that it is pushing a romance in it as well, even though a lot of the tags don't show romance. And then it establishes the very foundation of the story. The main protagonist and his mother's execution or betrayal. And so you've got this whole driven goal for the main protagonist, which I really love, by the way, because it really actually makes him quite, I wouldn't say necessarily evil, but he's very built on vengeance, and he does not care how he goes about it. Some people could see that as evil. Some people could see that as not evil. Again, it's a debate of whether you see it as evil or not. It doesn't matter to me. I just like the fact that it's got multiple shades to his character, and him having those multi-layers behind it. He's got a drive, he's got a purpose. He's not just some stud muffin in there picking up 60 different chicks going, yeah, man, I'm overpowered. No, he's got a reason to be there. He's driven, he's got a purpose. But here lies the problem. The other half of the story goes into another character that doesn't evolve that story, which I don't have a problem with. The problem is that takes up the vast percentage of the season, and it ends on that. Like, we don't see any more progress of the main point of the story that it tried to establish, which was him getting vengeance for his mother. And that's why it really needed to be 2 cores and not end on 15 episodes. It needed to have at least 24 or so episodes to allow us to see more of what that story is. That's my issue, is that it's a really good story, but it goes into something else at an important time where I feel like it should have spent a little bit more time getting us more hooked into the premise of the story. Again, I have no problem with what the story was about, and I can definitely feel like it skipped a lot of story, because at least from what I can gather from looking at the covers of the volumes, it at least got up to volume 3 of the story. And again, I don't know how much source material it's gone through, but it clearly finished at episode 15 deliberately because of the amount of contents in it, and it wanted to make sure it got through at least the bulk of the story. But it does feel like there's a lot of stuff pruned out of it. That also being said, it just ends on a point where I'm just like, I just would have liked it if it was 2 cores and it actually built up a little bit more of why he's there, a little bit more of the next target that he's after, building up those characters and stuff, rather than it just felt like it ended on a really weird note. Again, I'm not hating the story premise, everything like that is really good. I just feel like it needed more episodes so that you could get built into this world, get an idea of what's going on. It just, yeah, I know I'm kind of harping on and I'm kind of beating the drum, but when I was watching it, I just kind of got to a point where I was like, dude, I want to see more of him going after his targets. Like, I like this other character because she's kind of hot. She's got big juggalo, so of course I'm going to like her. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like her. I actually was kind of bummed that she ended up disappearing at the end of the season. I was like, oh, she just kind of like faded away with the guy, the other person. And I was just like, okay. She was hot. Would have liked her stick around, become a friend, maybe flirt with the main protagonist. I don't care if it turned into a harem. I just didn't want it to be the only component of the story. Just to be very clear, I like harems. I just don't like it when that's the only part of the story. Like, you go into an anime and it's like, oh, this is a story about stuff and a harem. What's the core component of the story? The harem. What about it? It's just a harem. What about the characters? It's just a harem. This isn't that. This does actually have, again, as I mentioned, all the evolving parts of the characters, the drive, the motivations, the strengths, the weaknesses, the little problems that they're going through. And it's clear that there's some other characters that might have a little bit of a crush on the main protagonist. I just wish there was more episodes. Really do. And they have the source material. They have like 12 volumes. So they could have gone through volume 4 or something, or if they did finish on volume 3, they could have gone through another volume. And I kind of wish they did, at least to build up the next part of it, get me more invested. But it just kind of left me like, really just left hanging. And the problem is that because it's a light novel series and every season new animes come out that are light novels, you have too many light novel series. If you've been on my channel long enough, you know that I'm doing a lot of light novel content and I've been pumping out a lot of light novel reviews. I don't have time to add another 50 different light novels or even another 2 or 3. It's just too much time already that I'm going through other light novel series. So a series like this, I would love to read. Absolutely. But I just don't have the time to go through another 12 volumes, though I've noticed that they haven't done any new volumes in the last year. It's just one of those where I'm like, would like to have seen more of the anime, at least. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of the series? Because overall, the whole premise of the story being this kind of Harry Potter, DanMachi kind of mix of the characters going into the dungeon, meeting students, different levels, and the deeper you go in, the higher the grade the students are, because clearly they've got more spells, they've got more knowledge, and some of those students aren't as nice as you think they are. They have their own goals, their own drives, and even the teachers aren't exactly nice as well. Some of them can be quite douchey, that's the thing. I kind of like this more than Harry Potter in a sense, because Harry Potter, the issue with the story is that some of the teachers are just way too nice. Which you can say, okay, there are some douchey teachers in Harry Potter, like the guy that's like trying to steal other people's fame and all that kind of stuff. But I just kind of liked how dark and gritty this was compared to like Harry Potter. I guess for me, I always loved Harry Potter growing up as a kid, and then seeing as the story developed, it just felt like either the movies just didn't adapt enough of the novels, because it just felt like the first 3 movies were like, oh, look how deep this castle is, the mysteriousness, the moving stairs and the weird chasms and the dog over there and all the trolls and the dungeon and all that. And then as the movies went on, it just felt like the world shrunk in Harry Potter. But with this series, the world kind of expands as the story goes on. So it's that kind of other effect where as you're going through the dungeon, it expands and expands and expands, much like how DanMachi feels. The deeper you go into the dungeon, the more the dungeon feels like it expands and has its own life form, its own ecosystem, its creatures, and students and teachers seem to be kind of hanging out down there. The castle itself feels very small, but the dungeon feels very vast and almost infinite in scale. So that's what I liked about it, and I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of this series? Because there was a lot of hype behind it, might I add. A lot of people hyped this series up, and then as soon as it started airing, people were like, this didn't quite go the way they hoped, which I think left it kind of a little bit high and dry, which is why I don't ever see this getting to season 2. This to me was just pure source material, 110% source material seller, which is disappointing. But at the end of the day, if you really want to read this, you can read the light novels. There are an English release. I just don't have the time to read that many light novels. So again, love to know your thoughts. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.